The Detroit Tigers lose to the Chicago Cubs in Javi Baez's return to Wrigley Field. We will talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome in. Welcome all, everybody. Happy Wednesday, the halfway point of the week here. The Detroit Tigers played in the friendly confines of Wrigley Field on Tuesday night. Lost 3-1 at the hands of the Chicago Cubs, who oddly went into this game with the same record as the Detroit Tigers. And I don't say oddly if you've been following the Cubs even relatively closely throughout this season. You'd know that they are having a relatively disappointing year, but there is still some time left. I don't expect them to turn it around and make a huge run or anything like that. But going into the year, I think that there was some hype. Yeah, they're 5.5 out of the wild card. There was a little bit of hype around the Cubs, bringing back Bellinger and whatnot. He's been fine. He hasn't been amazing. OPS in the mid 700s, high 700s, hitting 275, which is good. But it's I don't know. There was just a little bit of hype surrounding them going into the year. They bring back Bellinger. They have some pretty darn good pitching. They still have some pretty darn good pitching. And just haven't really been able to put it all together this season, but they walk away with the win on Tuesday night against your Detroit Tigers. And really, these are just games that are going to happen with the way that the roster is currently constructed. That was really my biggest takeaway from this game. They lose 3-1. They're now 61-65 on the season. But yeah, this was really a game where they didn't not get on base. They were on base. There's just, in the last few games, honestly, quite a few games, there's been one big hit that has gotten them over the edge, right? Javi had the homer against Seattle. You obviously had the walk-off on Sunday. But all of those were close, low-scoring games. We talked about it literally yesterday, about how the offense, while it's been good enough, hasn't exactly been good either. And you have all these names that are really exciting, and you have all these players that could potentially be a part of the future, but the odds that all of them are a part of the future is very slim. There's a difference between those two things, right? And so it's very exciting. I love watching the lineup that they rolled out there today. Again, one run, but the names on it are super exciting because it's pretty much, outside of Javi, it's pretty much everybody is a young, controllable asset that could be a part of the future. With that is going to come games like this, where you go, 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position? Yeah, it's going to happen. I mean, we can just get right into it. What went wrong was the offense. 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position. They had 9 hits tonight and a walk. Not very often is 10 base runners going to net you 1 run, especially in today's day and age of baseball, where everything is based around extra base hits and home runs and whatnot. But they just couldn't string together hits. And they didn't get the big hit today. We were you remove one big hit a lot of the last week, and you're talking about a much different record than the 6-1 record they did have in the last 7 games going into Tuesday night's game. So that's just something that comes with the territory of young hitters. We talked about that back in spring training. Scott Harris talked about that back in spring training, right? They have to learn situations. They're relatively unpredictable when they're younger players, and they have to learn how to come through in high pressure situations. You also could very much argue they just have to learn how to score more, right? Yes, that you want them to be in higher leverage situations so that they can so that they can learn how to come through in those higher leverage situations. But also, the pitching has been good. The pitching's been good I mean, really, yeah. If you want to get super general about it, you could argue the starting pitching at least has been pretty darn good all season. But even in the month of August, like the pitching hasn't been awful, especially the last week and a half. It's just been a lot of close, low scoring ball games. And tonight it bit them. And that's what's going to happen when you have a team that has like 7 players under 25 years old or whatever it is. Ridiculous. But that's also what this, like, I'm not mad. You know what I'm saying? Like that's also what this part of the season is for. This is what we all wanted. We all wanted all the youth to come up, see what we have in them. You can't have it both ways, right? You got to understand the lumps and the growing pains that come with a really young lineup. And games like this are that. So I'm really not too upset with it. I think that games like this just kind of come with the territory of where the Tigers find themselves on August 20th, August 21st, as you're listening to this. Some individuals that I think struggled in this ball game. Riley Greene looked like he was pretty off timing wise, is how I would describe it. 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. I'm not like sounding the alarms. I'm not worried. He's been back for 2 games from injury after not having played for a decent amount of time. So I'm not like sounding the alarm or like super worried about this at all. But really, I think that this is just, again, like he needs to reacclimate himself to Major League pitching after not facing it for quite a long time. We'll see if it's something that strings together and is a week on end, a week and a half, 2 weeks of him looking like this, then yeah, we'll start talking about how the inconsistencies continue, how the injuries have led to another season that kind of looks weird like this. We'll have that conversation, but 2 games in, I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. I'm going to wait and see, and we'll see how he looks going forward. But yeah, certainly not a great day at the office for him. Just, again, timing looked all out of whack, which is another reason why, again, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, because timing is something he has proved that he can adjust to and fix. And he's done that earlier this year. He did that, started off slow, and then it clicked, and then was really good leading up until the injury. Last season, when the timing clicked, started off slow, and then I'm kind of just waiting for that to happen again. And it's his second. This is a very small sample size. It's his second game back from injury. Kerry Carpenter, also pretty small sample size as well, going back the last few games, but really dating back to the big home run he had. When was that? Was that against Seattle? Right before the weekend, right around the start of the weekend. He's been struggling the last few games, goes 0 for 3 with a strikeout in this one. He's another guy that has just, again, shown time and time again that he's a good hitter. And I'm not going to freak out over a small sample size yet. Once it turns into a bigger sample size, then I might. But for now, we're going to leave it how it is. But yeah, those two guys, 0 for 7 with 4 strikeouts between the two of them. Not great. Hard to win ball games when the top 4 in your lineup get 1 total hit. That was Matt Vierling with a single in this ball game. Not a recipe for success. Let's keep the ball rolling here. Got a few more players. Honestly, I mean, we can kind of wrap up and put a bow on that conversation. And we'll talk about what went right. There was a decent amount. I thought this was actually a pretty decently played ball game besides the amount of runners that crossed home plate for the Tigers. So we'll talk about all of those things right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships, and also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping Game 2 against the North Siders, against the Cubbies, and talking about anything else that happens surrounding the Tigers organization. After you make us your first listen, make Locked On MLB your second listen. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here to provide you daily national expertise with his trademark humor. He has a lot of humor. Very funny man. And can help you prepare for the Fall Classic and the postseason here in the dog days of summer. Again, Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we talked a lot about what went wrong. I think that's pretty much all I want to cover. Again, it's just really hard to win games when you go 1 for 13 with Risp. Dylan Dingler had a leadoff triple in this game and didn't score. Am I mad at a bullpen game that involved Bryan Sammons pitching the bulk innings, only giving up 3 runs total? Absolutely not. That would be absurd of me to blame the pitching for this game. This was 100% on the offense. And again, the Cubs have good starting pitching. It's just, and their bullpen has been really good the last month and a half, last 4 to 6 weeks. Their bullpen's been excellent. It started off pretty poorly. But has really turned it around and has put together a nice, solid, over a month sample size now. So yeah, they've put out their A-team bullpen as well. That has been lights out. Those 3 that they sent out there to end the game have been their anchors. So yeah, again, this is a young, inexperienced team. They're learning how to win. They're learning how to produce in high leverage situations, and they didn't. And that's part of learning. So let's talk about what went right in this game. The Matt Vierling catch in right field was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Again, he goes 1 for 4 at the plate as well. A lot of hits and base runners from the bottom half of the lineup for the Tigers in this game. Spencer Torkelson batting, what did he bat? 6 in this ball game, goes 4 for 4. One of those was kind of a check swing hit that blooped its way into the outfield, but I do not care. He goes 4 for 4. So with Torkelson, we have to look for something specific, right? We have to look for something in his performances and try to see if he is genuinely a different hitter with a different approach, with different mechanics than he was pre-send down. And so far, in a very small sample size, so we are going to give it a much longer and larger sample size before we jump to any conclusions here. I'm not going to proclaim anything 2 games or 3 games back. But since his return, he has seemed to be a lot more okay with spraying the ball all over the field and taking kind of what the pitcher gives him, not afraid to go the opposite way, keep the ball on the ground. Prior to his send down last year or this year, well, really prior to his send down this year and including his year last year, he was very pull power oriented, and that is still where all of his power will come from. I don't think he's going to be a huge opposite field home run guy, but that he was very honed in on pulling and lifting the baseball. We talked about that on here. We talked about how good his numbers were when he pulled and lifted the baseball. But in a season sample of him doing that, he didn't get a lot of hits. And he didn't get enough walks to really justify selling out for power every single opportunity he could get. So he was a 30 home run hitter that had an OPS in like the mid or high 700s, right? And so I think that so far this year, so far since getting recalled, so far in 3 games, one of those he went over. We have seen him, again, hit the ball and take a single to right center field or drive the ball into the right center field gap and take a double, right? There are things like that he has been doing so far. Now, we will see if that's sustainable. We'll see if that's a fluke or if that's something that he's going to continue to do throughout the rest of the season. That would be a great sign if he was. And one of the most noteworthy quotes from AJ Hinch about Torkelson in the both of their entire tenure, which almost exactly overlap, is AJ Hinch said, I think it was last year. It was either last year or 2 years ago. Somebody had asked him about Torkelson's struggles, and he had said that when he was first hired, he was told that Torkelson was this all-around hitter that could hit the ball with power to all fields. And in his first year, he tried to do that and did not succeed. And that's why he got so pull heavy in year 2 and was a 30 home run hitter with 94 or whatever RBIs. But there was still a lot of room to grow, right? It was kind of just home run or nothing for a little bit there. And so it's so wild to me. His entire career arc is wild to me, I guess. But it really is telling to me that the manager of the team was like, yeah, when he was in college and when he was really good, we thought he was going to be a guy that could use all parts of the field. And so far as a pro, he has not done that even remotely. So I'm hoping that the mechanical changes he has clearly made, by the way, there are changes in his stance, there are changes where his load is, his hands, etc. Slight, but there are noticeable changes, are all to get him to, again, the ship has pretty much sailed on me thinking that this dude is going to be like a 280, 40 home run hitter, right? With like a 900 OPS. That ship has long sailed to me. But I think if you get the average to better than it was last year and you re-find like 30-ish home run power, there's a pretty solid major league first baseman still on the table here. It's just a matter of seeing, again, these next 6 weeks, we have a lot of time to come to that conclusion. And we're going to take every bit of it and see how he does the rest of the way. Okay? So that's kind of what I took out of this game, the noticeable stuff that I took out of this game. But again, want to see a much bigger sample. And that's why they called him up. That's what the last 6 weeks are for. They're an audition for a lot of people. Spencer Torkelson obviously included. Dylan Dingler, I thought, had a great game in this one as well. Goes 2 for 4 with an RBI. Again, had the leadoff triple that did not score somehow, which is always very embarrassing. But I think the biggest thing, I continue to stress this, it's awesome that he can hit because catchers that hit are a luxury. So that's great. We're going to continue monitoring that. His offensive numbers have gotten better lately. That's all fine and dandy. He looks so confident behind the plate. So confident. He looks like he's in complete control. Like, even though he's a rookie, no matter who he's catching, he has confidence in what he's calling, his confidence in what he's doing back there. I have absolutely loved what I've seen from Dylan Dingler behind the plate. And that means honestly much more to me than what he does in the batter's box. Now, he can't have a 550 OPS in the batter's box, so I want him to be a good hitter. But I really do think the ceiling is fastly raising in my head for like what I think he could become. There was a point last year where I was like, yeah, if Dingler's like a solid 1B catcher, that would be a win at this point. This dude's had a really wild kind of roller coaster of a minor league career. Now, with how good he looks defensively and the potential offense, not guaranteed, but the potential offense, you could be talking about a legitimate 1A catcher. So you need 2. Everybody needs 2 catchers these days. They're like goalies in hockey. You don't get through a whole season with 1 anymore. But I do think that there's a really solid 1A catcher in there. It's just a matter about developing and getting that out of him. So I really liked what I saw from him today as well. And then, we'll end on just like the pitching was fine. Like, again, I had no issue with Bryan Sammons going 4 1/3, giving up 3 runs, 2 strikeouts. He has a 3.91 ERA, dog. Like, did you expect Bryan Sammons to come up, pitch bulk inning relief roles, like bulk inning, use an opener, and he's basically the makeshift de facto starter and have a sub 4 ERA going into the year? That was the expectation? Like, no, obviously not. I didn't expect this dude to ever play Major League Baseball for the Detroit Tigers, and now he's throwing 4 to 6 innings an outing and throwing up sub 4 ERA ball. I'm very far from upset with Sammons. I actually really like his cutter still. And we'll see what he does the rest of the year as well. Shelby Miller, 2 innings of shutout ball. Thought that was impressive. And then Alex Faedo opens the game with 1 2/3 of shutout ball. I don't have any issues with the pitching in this game. I don't want to retread conversation and repeat myself. I have a real problem with that. I know some of you pointed out. I apologize. I'm aware of it. I'm trying. I promise I'm trying my best. So I don't want to retread that conversation, but this is not on the pitching, very much on the offensive side of the ball. Let's get to stuff. Okay, let's do that right after this. Going to talk to you all today about our friends over at Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money at Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 on Prize Picks, which is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's you against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and you watch the winnings roll in. Get on all the daily action with your friends and become a part of the Prize Picks community today. It's so much fun. More or less on stats. Football season starts this weekend. College football week 0 starts Saturday. I'm so pumped. Okay. And I am glued to Prize Picks, looking at more or less a lot of stat projections there. We talk about baseball all the time, and the stat projections on there with starting pitching strikeouts, hits, RBIs, you name it, they have it. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, let's talk stuff. So one of the big question marks surrounding the fan base after this game was the decision to pinch hit Kerry Carpenter for Andy Ibanez there against the lefty late. I honestly, look, and I come on here and I complain and moan about the fact that Carpenter doesn't face as many lefties as I'd like him to either. I had zero issue with this one. Andy Ibanez is Barry Bonds against lefties. He has an OPS over 1,000 against lefties. Okay. It's late. It's a close game. And you want to get Andy Ibanez an at-bat against that. Kerry Carpenter is objectively worse against lefties than he is against righties. That is a fact. And he also just in general, as we talked about earlier, over the last few games, hasn't really been swinging it very well in general. Now, does that mean that I want Kerry Carpenter to never face a lefty again? No, it does not. I want Kerry Carpenter to face a lot more lefties. I want him to get acclimated. I want him to be the DH/corner outfielder of the future of this baseball team. And that would require him to be able to hit righties and lefties. Now, he can still be a very valuable asset and be very good if he can only hit righties. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what he turns into. But I want to find that out, and I want to find that out in the last, over time. But I want him to get experience in the last 6 weeks of the season here, facing a lot more lefties than he did before his injury. That all being said, in this specific one at-bat, it's one AB, I had no issue with it. Javier Baez, return to Wrigley Field. My goodness, did they play this one up on the broadcast and just in general, Wrigley really played it up. He means a lot to that fan base. Obviously was did he play second there in 2016? Was he still young enough where he was playing second? Either way, was a prominent part of that Cubs core that very famously and obviously broke the curse, won the World Series in 2016, will forever have a giant place in the hearts of Cubs fans. He goes 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts in his return to Wrigley. That was his first game back in Wrigley since being traded to the Mets. He had not gone back to Wrigley since, so it's been, 3 years. It was, I know everybody in this fan base just can't stand Javy and whatever. Like it was cool to see him get appreciated. Like that's still a person, and like he's clearly had a rough go at work, making more money than I'll ever make in my lifetime. But like, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure he wants to do better, and it was nice to see him get appreciated by some fans. But really, the emotion more so than that I felt in this game and just throughout all of the fan drama was just sadness. Like, we will never see that with Javy. That will never be this fan base. This fan base, Javi's not going to ever come back to Comerica Park post playing for the Tigers, whenever that is, and get like a resounding standing ovation or be like beloved. And the reason for that is because the production has been bad. I'm not saying that's anyone's fault but his own, but like that is that's an objective truth. This fan base is not going to treat him like that. And I just think about the player he was, right? And why they love him so much. They love him because he was arguably one of the most electric players in the game of baseball. That is true. That is a fact. He was one of the most exciting and electrifying players this sport had to offer. Cover of MLB The Show, right? Had all the endorsement deals and whatnot. Like, it just had everything. And to see what he is now, it doesn't even seem like the same player. Like, as the kids say, like, the aura is gone, right? Like, it doesn't feel the same at all when he's in the batter's box. Or when he's at shortstop, or when he's on second base. Like, it's just different. And maybe it's one of those just like, I say maybe it's that unexplainable thing. No, he has a 514 OPS. Like that's it. But like, you know what I mean? It's a vibe thing too at the same time. I don't know. I just felt sad that like we thought that was going to be us. There were plenty of people that were skeptical. Goodness, I was skeptical of signing him. Always been a free swinger. I didn't expect it to be this bad, but like plenty of people were skeptical. I'm not saying that, but like when he signed pen to paper, there was a lot of momentum on that team. You remember 2021? They won 74 games, I think. Took a big step in the right direction. They went out, they get Erod, they get Javy. They're calling up Torkelson and Greene. They trade for Austin Meadows. Like all of this happens, and we're like, oh my gosh, 2021 or 2020, 2022, I guess. We're like, this is it. 2022 is going to be some awesome year. And then it was a complete disaster. And Javy obviously is included in that. It just, looking at how much he impacted the city of Chicago, it just made me sad that he's going to play here for a while and years and years. And that's not what he's going to accomplish here. And that's sad because he had the ability to at one point. Okay. Most watched Little League Classic ever. I thought that was really cool. So the Tigers, obviously, the walk-off on Sunday. And I thought that was just a cool stat. The most watched Little League Classic game of all time. The Tigers beat the Yankees in extra innings. And the announcers could not have been more upset. I was pretty pumped about it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got. So the Tigers play the Cubs today at 8:05 Eastern. And then on Thursday, a day game, which is at 2:20 Eastern. Both of those are currently TBD. I'd imagine they're both going to be bullpen games. We'll see. I'm assuming Maeda is going to get in one of those. We'll see who the bulk reliever is for the other. Jameson Taillon and Justin Steele are the two pitchers who are going for the Cubs, both with pretty solid years. Taillon very quietly having a pretty solid year for the Cubs. I think it's just because they've been pretty disappointing, given to, again, as we said at the start, where people thought they were going to end up this year. But he's had a pretty solid year for them. And then Steele is one of the best. Honestly, I have no issue saying one of the better pitchers in baseball. And last year obviously had a phenomenal season, not quite as good as last year, but still a pretty darn good one. So you got a tall task ahead of you. Keep playing the youth. We'll take our lumps. That's expected. I think I'm trying to really drive that point home. We should all be accepting and be okay with the ups and downs and of the rest of the season, because that is what we asked for. We wanted some young, higher end, prospects and whatnot to get called up, and this just comes with the territory of that. So we'll see. And I just want to end by saying thank you to the listeners. Yesterday's episode was a mailbag, and I remember when I first got this gig, I remember doing a mailbag show and having to ask my friends and family to like write in questions and ask questions because I wasn't going to have enough to fill a show. I was getting 2 questions, maybe 3. And even I, in my rambling ways that talks far too much and rambles and repeats myself, was not going to be able to fill 30 with it. And now I have the opposite problem where I have so many questions. There's no way I can get through every single question that was asked in half an hour. And that is because of you, the listener. So I appreciate you all greatly. I just love ball. Just love ball. Just love the Tigers. Hopefully this is an outlet for you to be able to, I don't know, feel like you're talking to somebody else who just loves ball and loves the Tigers. Because that's all I am. So I appreciate you all greatly. I appreciate the support of this show more than you will ever know. And I will see you all tomorrow. All right. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.